Rosa DeLauro from Connecticut. I got to say, when people talk about how Democrats aren't doing enough or aren't doing anything at all or any of that shit, I'd like to remind everyone that they do this stuff all day long. And this is, there are a lot of boring parts of governing that Trump and his ilk hate to do, but it's the majority of what they have to do and they should be doing, okay? And one of them is just put together a fucking budget so we know what you're going to spend money on and what you aren't. So check this out.
The ranking member, Ms. DeLauro.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Let me just one area of correction, which has to do with the measles issue, Mr. Secretary. You keep comparing the U.S. to other countries. You compare us to Europe, but the Europe you are referring to is the WHO European region. That's 53 countries in Europe and in Asia, including those with low vaccination rates like Romania, that has never eliminated measles. If you compare us to Western Europe countries that we often compare ourselves to, like Great Britain, they have seen no measles death this year. Let me move to the NIH. In your testimony, you say you want to quote.
By the way, can I just say that's how it's done? Rosa DeLauro, that's how it's done. Fantastic. One of the ways that they do what I would call statistics washing, you broaden the base so fucking wide that it obscures the details. That's one of the big ways you lie with statistics, is you weight the statistic by either watering it down or being over specific. And I would argue that like RFK Jr. Waters them down across a broader swath to make the United States as a single country look worse, when if they went country by country, there'd be a lot more normalized parallels than they would care to admit. And like the singling out of stuff, like Mehdi Hassan tends to do this all the time, where he will take anecdotal single stuff and avoid the greater number without applying that number to anything that's measurable in the reality. That's the broad spectrum of how you can fuck around and lie with numbers.
Rescale our biomedical research budget, unquote. Excuse me, but that's BS. You are not rescaling NIH research. You are proposing to cut it by $20 billion. And according to our colleagues in the Senate, NIH has effectively cut research funding by $2.7 billion this year in comparison to the same period last year. That's a cut of 35% during that period. That includes cutting cancer research by 31%. This is the report put out by the Senate, Trump's War on Science, which goes into detail about how we are, in fact, dealing with cutting scientific research. Mr. Secretary, are you freezing or withholding funding that Congress appropriated in 2025 for life-saving NIH research?
Let me address your first issue first, because I want to correct you. We have about 1,100 measles cases in this country. The growth rate last year was 15 additional, so we have plateaued. Mexico has roughly the same number with a third of our population, and they got 300 extra cases last week. Canada has more measles, 1,500. They have 1/8 of our population. Western Europe has about 6,000, which is 10 times the number that we have. Well, you are wrong.
And also, Western Europe is not a country. See how he's doing it?
We can discuss that, but I
also, Mexico, the cases that they have are in like hugely impoverished areas, not in areas where you would have vaccination. And in Canada, you have a bunch of people like you have in the United States that avoid vaccination and live half off the grid.
One has to consider whether or not we're dealing with decades of data proving how effective and safe the measles vaccine is. I want to move to that. I want my questions answered on, are you freezing and withholding funding that Congress appropriated in 2025 for life-saving NIH research?
We are not withholding any funding for life-saving research.
Okay.
Yeah, Alzheimer's isn't life-saving. Cancer you can fix with vitamin D, so I don't know why that would be life-saving. Notice that fucking workaround?
Do you commit to following the law?
Of course.
Fully obligating funding that Congress appropriated We appropriated, it is the law of the land for NIH research, and to obligate those funds by September 30th of this year. Or are you planning to break the law by impounding congressionally appropriated funds?
If you appropriate me the funds, I'm going to spend them.
We have in the bill. You are cutting the NIH by $18 billion, or you're proposing to cut it by $20 billion. The Congress appropriated those funds. It passed into law. It's part of the 2024 budget, and we are under a continuing resolution that has adopted the 2024 numbers. How then can you justify?
All right, real quick. What did I fucking say? Chat room, what did I fucking say about the CR, about Schumer and the CR? We're still on Biden's budget. The only thing they can do is add funds on top of that through secondary bills, which is what they've done. They passed like 5 things and they've added some funding, or they took discretionary funding and moved it around. But they weren't able to eliminate these programs outright like they want to, because we're still under a CR and they haven't passed a budget. And at this rate, they're not going to. Now, if you allow the government to shut down, Trump and his cronies will say, well, technically at this moment, these programs are not funded. Therefore, if the government wants them funded again, then Congress can pass a bill to recreate the Department of Education. They can create FEMA again from scratch. That's what they'll do. Understand that. If you shut down the government, they're going to use that gap legally to shut down these programs. Now, there may be a fight in the Supreme Court to be had. There may be a fight in the circuit court to be had about whether or not they can do that, or whether you can do that during a temporary government shutdown, or what qualifies as a temporary government shutdown. But if there's no law in place, because funding has run out as far as what the government has actually allocated for these things, those programs no longer exist. I mean, you could, in theory, zero out the entire Department of Defense if you wanted to. Obviously, most of those things when they shut down the government, they go first for the discretionary stuff. But technically speaking, nothing is funded. They're having to shuffle money around to pay for it, but the Congress has not specifically allocated funds.
$20 billion from the biomedical research budget.
If you appropriate the money to me, I'm going to...
They already did, you dumb motherfucker.
We have appropriated, Mr. Secretary.
Then I'm going to spend it.
Then you're going to spend it. You're not going to cut $20 billion from the NIH.
The White House proposal is to do very, very large cuts at NIH.
Well, that is contrary to the money appropriated.
Ranking member.
Yes.
If Congress appropriates me the money, I'm going to spend the money. You have the power of the purse here.
Thank you.
You know that.
Thank you for reiterating that, but I think...
Right, but you can't cut stuff that's been allocated. That's the point. You guys seem to think you can, is her point. And this is so fucking good. It's so good that she's calling him out on this shit.
I'm not sure the administration really has internalized that, particularly Mr. Vogt hasn't internalized that when he says that we can in fact, impound money. The money is there. The 2024 budget includes the funding for the NIH. Will you commit to spending the money that is in 2024 in that budget?
As I said, ranking member, if you appropriate the money, I'm going to spend that money.
The money has been appropriated. So the answer to that is if you're not willing to accept the funds that have been lawfully voted by members of the House and Senate on the money for the National Institutes of Health. We're going to hold you to your word that that funding is there. It should be transferred from 24 to 25, and you've cut already $20 billion. Let's get that money back. Let's get that money back. You have an obligation to carry out the law and to implement what the Congress has done.
By the way, she's not going to get a lot of pushback from Republicans about this because, again, most of this funding goes to their districts. The worst health outcomes in the United States are in red districts, both per capita and by population.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable.
I agree.
Chronic disease and tobacco. Tobacco use is a major contributor to chronic disease and is a leading preventable cause of death in our nation. Each year, killing nearly 500,000 Americans, costing the nation nearly $250 billion in healthcare costs. CDC's tips from former smokers' media campaign alone is estimated to have saved more than $7 billion in healthcare costs by helping more than 1 million smokers quit. Why did you eliminate CDC's Office of Smoking and Health, an office that reduces the number of kids using tobacco products, helps order tobacco users to quit, and saves taxpayers dollars?
We have, under the reorganization, and I'm going to talk very, very broadly.
No. By the way, the reason he's going to talk very, very broadly is because if he answers specifically, his answer is yes, and it's just because they're trying to cut money so that so Trump can have his tax cut. They're just bare bonesing shit. They don't have a reasoning for it. They're just like, look, if the government has to talk you into doing something or remind you that something's poisonous or toxic, why are they helping you? You should just die. That's the argument. If the government has to tell you that smoking is bad for you at this point, then shouldn't you just die? And if you do, well, at some point we're going to allow the health companies, the healthcare industry to not treat you anymore. That's the next step in this.
Because as of 4 o'clock yesterday afternoon, we are under a court order not to do any further planning on the reorganization. And
yeah, it's because you can't do any cuts because you're still on the same budget before, you dumb motherfucker. That's what she was talking about.
I've been advised by my attorneys and not to talk about it. But I will just say broadly, many of the...
No, you can talk about it. You can say, like, we're not doing any restructuring until such time as Congress changes their budgetary rules and the amount of money that they're giving to us and where that money should go, where it should be allocated.
The Democrats are now saying we're cut at CDC. We're not cut at all. Those programs were transferred to the Administration for Healthy America.
The Administration for Healthy America, the MAHA group.
I'm not permitted to talk in any more detail because of a court order.
That's just stupid. Yes, you are.
Yeah, we're just dealing with words.
That's all. I mean, again, that's fucking nonsense. This is like a ongoing investigation excuse. I can't talk about an ongoing investigation. Motherfucker, they just told you can't go any further with your restructuring. So what she's asking you is, if they've given you money and it's already allocated and it's in the budget to go to a certain program or a certain department, you have to put it there. Your directions on stuff or you're being the fucking voice of the entire organization is one thing, but Congress gets to decide where things go and how much.
Transfer it here. There's less money overall for the agency.
Whoops. What happened? Did my headphones come out? Did I lose audio on this? Hold on 1 second.
We're just dealing with words. You transfer it here, there's less money overall for the agency, therefore there's less money for the programs. In both 2024, 2025, Congress, again, power of the purse resides here, appropriated $246 million for CDC's tobacco prevention programs. Do you commit to following the law again, fully obligating those funds so that we can help adults who want to quit using tobacco and prevent teens from becoming addicted?
Allow me to answer that by pointing out the absolute cataclysmic disorganization of this agency under your oversight for 40 years.
Fuck you, dude. Jesus Christ. Yeah, so, you're right. He's an asshole.
We had 9 separate offices of women's health. When we consolidate them, the Democrats
Let me guess.
We're eliminating them or not. We're still appropriating the 3.7, but we're not keeping on.
Hold on. Let me guess. There was one for tribal women. There was one dealing with low-income women. There was one dealing with like breast cancer and survivor networks and the like. There was one dealing with reproductive health. There was one dealing with menopause as a primary thing. And that each of these areas, because they are heavy lifting on their own as per each issue, all of those dealt with a sector of women's health under an umbrella of women's health. And so 9 different offices have a meaningful mandate individually for each of those things. But you don't understand that, you fucking scrotum.
We had 8 separate offices for minority health. We eliminated 1. We had 27
You had 8, you eliminated 1. Why? Were there 2 black ones? Sorry, you know what? Who am I to say? Maybe he's right. Maybe all minorities are alike. Maybe just the very nature of being a minority makes you similar in your dietary issues and your health concerns and your environmental factors and your genetic concerns. Because, I mean, why? This motherfucker probably eliminated the sickle cell department because it doesn't apply to Asians and Hispanic. It can't be broadly thrown across all minorities. So who needs it?
HIV offices.
Okay, let me just, I'm going to
We had
interrupt.
59
The chair
behavioral
is
health
right. I'm
programs.
well over time. If you could just get us what has been eliminated, why you're doing it, and the criteria by which the elimination has occurred. That is information that this committee needs in order to be able to do our job in terms of appropriating funds. Thank you
And
for
we
your
will
indulgence.
gladly provide that to you, but right now we're
Also, gladly bullshit. He is not. They have not done a budget.